Okay, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on AI tools. I hope you're all doing well this morning, and we just want to start off with a short introduction from our side, and then we'll head into the presentation. So my name is Angela Abbott, and joining me today is my colleague Joshua Ballum. And we work in the Digital Economy Unit within the Department of Economic Development and Tourism, also known as DDAC. A lot of the projects and the work that our team does is around enabling businesses to digitally transform, to accelerate digital skills in the province and feed that skills pipeline and that talent pipeline, to increase R&D, which is also research, development, investment, and to support the technology and innovation ecosystem and various others. So these projects align directly to the growth for jobs strategy. That is a Western Cape government strategy. Okay, so what I'd like to do is just move on to just cover some notes before we kick off. Our session is being recorded today, and we will the recording will be made available, and we will be putting it on our web page. There is no external unauthorized AI bots allowed on the session. So if you have enabled from your side, if you could please disable this, is in accordance with our Western Cape Government Information Security Policy. So those are not permitted. We have automatically deactivated your microphone and video, obviously to reduce any disruptions during the session. But you are welcome to post any questions as we go along in the Q&A, which is at the top of your screen, the little button there, and just to keep them clear and to the point, and we will manage that on the side. If our presenter, Keegan, has time to respond during the session, he will. Otherwise, we will handle those questions at the end. Myself and Josh are co-facilitating and hosting, so we may intervene from time to time to manage the session if required. And just to be patient and allow us a few seconds delay between the sharing between myself and the presenter. All right, so we are very fortunate to have an expert presenter join us today, Keegan Stoko from Versant, and we have obviously showcased his short bio previously, but I am delighted to introduce him today. And so he has been building tools. He is an expert in the space, so he's been previously part of the founding team of Fivertime, and over the last years he's worked hands-on with 40+ companies to figure out where and how they should actually use AI. So you are in good hands today, and he'll take over shortly. All right, so just to cover our agenda items for today, we're going to obviously discover free and affordable AI tools that save time and boost productivity, learn how to automate routine business tasks with simple, practical steps, explore real-world examples on how SMMEs can use AI today, unpack emerging AI trends and what they mean for small businesses, and then understand how to use AI responsibly, safely, and with confidence. Okay, so I just want to start off with a poll before we kick off in the formal presentation. So I'm just going to launch a poll. We really just want to get a sense of what your confidence levels are currently with AI and what particular tools you may be using AI tools at this stage. So I'm just going to quickly launch that.
Cool. Thank you, Angela. Yeah, morning, everyone. Good to meet you all. Like Angela said, just going to kind of run through a few key agenda items, please feel free to hop in here with questions or stick anything in the chat. Typically find that these things are far more useful if you're asking questions that are directly related to your use cases in your business. Yeah, so I think the kind of the key idea is that, whether you're running a small business or a large business, you are probably wearing a lot of different hats. And you have a lot of kind of different things happening across the team or across the organization, which sink a lot of your time. And AI is really effective at trying to reduce that, and trying to just make everything that you do a bit more streamlined. And I think that is the way to think about it in its current shape and form. It's something that is an assistant to you. And if you can figure out how to identify tasks that you're doing repeatedly and then describe them properly to the AI tool that you're using, and we'll get into some of those tools later, you suddenly have an assistant that's at your side, that's becoming increasingly effective, and increasingly reliable, and is already pretty affordable, and only going to get cheaper. So I think you can kind of view AI as something that's going to allow you to claw back hours or do more with the hours that you have, rather than anything else at this point. And that obviously gives a lot of leverage to small teams who are trying to cover a lot of ground. Perfect. So having a look at some of the answers that were coming into the chat there, it seems like a lot of people are already using these tools, which I think is great. If there's anything that you walk away with today, it's like just encouragement to start experimenting and exploring and trying to use these tools for anything that you're doing. We'll hop into a couple of demos about how you can get started. But if anything, I think it's a case of just really lean into it and start playing around with them. There is a bit of a learning curve. It's getting better. It's getting easier. But ultimately, you're going to have to hop in at some point. And the earlier you do that, the better. So I think that try to think about what a kind of stack of tools would be useful to almost all businesses. And I think that you can kind of start with probably two tools. One is an AI tool of choice. For me personally, that's Claude. I find that the product is incredible. It's really good on mobile. It covers almost all ground. And with Claude Cowork, which we'll hop into in a little bit, you get a lot of power and you can cover a lot of different parts of your business. The other one, which I find myself using tons and tons, is a tool called Granola. That's really it's just a meeting note-taking tool. If you find yourself in meetings often, it's surprising how valuable it is to have those transcripts. So Granola is great from our perspective because it doesn't join meetings. It captures the transcription, whether that's a call or if you're in person often. There's a great mobile app that you can kind of just position next to you, and it will capture those meetings too. And at least for me and for a lot of the people that I've worked with, those meeting transcripts typically contain all the information that you need, whether that's going through and scoping a project after a meeting, if it's drawing up a memo, if it's drafting an email that you need to send to the team afterwards. You've typically discussed it in the meeting, and it's really effective if you can take that transcript and drop it into your tool and have it perform whatever action you need it to do. So that's one of the examples that I'll show you shortly. The reason I like those two is that Granola, and there'll be some other similar tools to Granola, has a free tier. It's really good. You don't need anything beyond that if you're just getting started. And then something like Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini is, again, probably $20 to $25 per month. And it covers pretty much everything that you need, at least at the start. As you get comfortable with that, there might be use cases that you can't perform in there. And then you might want to look at specialized tools. But I would say that 80 to 90% of what most businesses are doing can happen directly in one of those AI assistants. So you really want to lean heavily into that and just think about how you can route more and more of your work through that. Will somebody just confirm that you can see my screen, please?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, so this is a use case that I find myself using almost on a daily basis. I'll have sessions with people to understand what they're trying to build and if we are able to help them. Typically, that's a meeting in person or online where we talk through their use cases. I explain what our tooling does. I explain what our product does. And 9 times out of 10, that leads to a request for a proposal. How can we approach this? What are some key use cases that we could do? what would this actually look like if we had to move forward. If I had to do that for every meter, I would say that it would take me 2 to 3 hours at least, kind of per proposal. So what I did was build what's called a skill in Claude Cowork, where all I asked Claude to do is assess pilot feasibility based on the transcript, and then I just drop the transcript in as it stands. I'm going to start running that in the meantime. And essentially what happens here is that I've given Claude a lot of context on what my business does and how I think about pilots. So what does a good pilot look like? How do we want to approach it from a use case perspective? What are 2 to 3 items that we would want to kick off with? How would I think about the duration of it? How would I think about the costing? So when I give it a transcript and ask it to assess that pilot feasibility, it goes through and it takes all that knowledge that it has and it thinks about that. And we might be able to see the thinking here. No. Cool. So you can kind of go through and see how the model is thinking about everything. But ultimately what it's going to do is run through, it's going to look at who the pilot might be and the specific use case. It's going to look at a couple of use cases for the project. And then where it isn't clear, it's going to ask me questions. And that seems like a kind of small feature, but it's actually very, very, very powerful because it just allows the tool and the model to clarify anything that it's uncertain of. So if you've ever had that experience in the past where a AI tool makes up something or it kind of just assumes that it's kind of understood something, you'll know how annoying that is. You'll know that that's almost always wrong. This ability to ask questions takes that completely out of the picture. It will go through, it will figure out where it isn't certain of things, and it will come back and ask you questions. And it will keep doing that until it has clarity. So, I mean, even if we just click through these quickly, it'll take those answers and then it will go back and it'll think through this again. Ultimately, we might do that once or twice and it will come back and think through things and give me a kind of breakdown of how it thinks this pilot will look like. It will go through and it will conduct a bunch of research. So based on the use cases we found, it will figure out if it's feasible. It will look at different websites. It will look at existing stuff that it thinks is relevant here and bring that all into the thinking. So as you can see there, it's searching the web, 15 different pages to try and figure out what's relevant here. So at the end of this process, which usually takes 5 minutes or so, it will then create a document based on a structure that I've told it to then go and actually produce a 1 or 2 pager saying what this pilot could look like, where it would cover the use cases, the pricing, the timelines, and all the next steps. So a 3-hour task that I would need to do manually is condensed into something that's 10 to 15 minutes, where the tool is doing all the work for me and I'm involved from a steering perspective and then reviewing that, yes, this is something that I, one, know is possible, 2, fits in with where I'm trying to steer my company, and 3, matches the kind of the work or the quality of work that I'm happy to put in front of my customers. So as you can see here, it's kind of coming back. It's detailing each of these use cases. And we use that to produce the pilot kind of document. What's interesting from there is that if we then move forward with it, it becomes something where all of this work and research that's been done largely then informs the next step of how do we implement this and how do we actually approach it. So you can see here, it will go through and ask more questions. Cool. So just going to stop sharing there, aware that it could have been a lot of information. But I just wanted to kind of show a real life example of how do we take something that's really time consuming and condense it down into something that's repeatable, easy, and maintains really high quality. Just before we move on, are there any specific questions on that or anything that people would like to get into at this point?
Okay, the one is from Austin. He asked about, does it provide sources for its information? In the chat, the last question.
Yes, it does. anything that it is using is referenced, and you can go and check those sources yourself. I'll also say that there has been a incredible difference in the quality and the reliability and the accuracy of these tools and of models over the last 6 to 12 months. And like a little bit of background context, the initial business that I started about a year ago was actually building tooling to figure out where AI models had produced false or fabricated information and then being able to correct that. Ultimately, we built something that was super effective, but was very difficult to sell because the problem of models producing lies or fabricated info just shrunk so quickly. I'd say that they are correct and using the kind of very well-cited sources over 95% of the time now. And where they're uncertain, they'll come back and ask you and tell you their uncertainty. So I feel very confident relying on this info. You obviously want to check it for yourself. You obviously want to kind of skim through and make sure that this is valid and this is correct. But the problem of them kind of using info that doesn't exist is largely non-existent now.
There's another question from Shani Kelly. The question is Claude similar to ChatGPT, but with a bit higher intelligence? That's the first question. I currently have a subscription with ChatGPT as I use it a lot for research.
They're absolutely comparable. They are almost the same tool. Claude has those two modes that I showed you, one being pure chat and then the other one being co-work. Co-work is something that ChatGPT doesn't offer yet. I expect that they will, but they don't offer it yet. And co-work is currently really powerful because you can do these kind of repeated tasks or processes. Personally, I find that the quality is a little bit better. I was also a ChatGPT user and subscriber for a long time. I still do use it occasionally, but almost everything has shifted to Claude. What I will say is that co-work is the thing that I was demoing right now. It's yeah. So everything that I was showing you now, that's co-work. What I will say is that it's largely personal preference. All of these tools are very powerful. All of them can do largely the same things. So I wouldn't worry about, is Claude or is ChatGPT better? If you're using either one of them, it's great. Just make sure that you're using one of them at least. And then if you're able to try and experiment across both, yeah, it's really useful to just see which tools you feel better with, where you get better results, and the learning from one always translates into the other. So yeah, it's a case of just experiment as much as you can, and you'll probably find where your preference lies.
There are three more questions. Well, let's limit it to that three because we still have to move on. So the first question, I'm just going to read it out to you. Does co-work keep a history in one chat or space? For example, ChatGPT, it does not localize each query. It opens in a new chat. That's the first question. The second one is, do you have experience with Google Gemini? Is it as good as Claude or ChatGPT? Claude Free is excellent for me for developing courses. I stopped my subscription with ChatGPT. It couldn't give me the same quality of work to Claude. There we end.
So on the first one, about whether Claude Co-work keeps a history in one chart or space, there's a few ways that it does it. It does develop an understanding or a memory of your preferences and of your work. You're also able to create something called projects. So you might have a project for your business, you might have a project for finances, you might have a project for health, you might have a project for personal life, and then you can have context or memories that are specific to that project. So that is a nice way of kind of keeping it localized and ensuring that when you're working on one of those projects, Claude has all the relevant context. On the second question about Google Gemini, I'm a fan of Google. I'm bullish on what they're doing and what they're building. They've released some really good models. Gemini is great. So if you're using that, I'd say carry on. They also don't have the same kind of functionality as Claude Co-work. And it is So I'd say if you can experiment with Cowork, personally, there's just like a fundamental difference between just a pure chatbot versus something like Cowork, which is, to be honest, more of an agent that can actually do work and take action for you. I think that going forward, Gemini is going to become better and better purely because it has access to, assuming you're using a Google Stack, it has access to Drive, it has access to your email, it has access to all the other Google products that you use. And it is really useful just having that integrated into the tools that you already use day to day. And then the final question, I think, was just on Claude Free. I agree, but I would say that it's worth paying for these tools, at least one subscription. The free models are capable, but the kind of top tier models are significantly better. And even if that's only for a month or 2 or 3, just to get a feel for what the kind of models are really capable of, I think that that's a worthwhile investment. It's also worth noting, and we'll chat about it towards the end of this presentation, that if you are on a free tier, you are giving the model providers permission to use your information to train new models. That isn't true if you are on a paid version. You can opt out of it then. Cool. So I'm just going to talk through that. Yeah, highest ROI AI use cases. So here, similar to what I mentioned at the kind of the beginning, is you really want to start with things that are pretty small in scope, right? It's like you're not looking to do anything complex. You're not looking to do anything that is very convoluted and has a whole bunch of steps. If you can find small processes that happen frequently and figure out how to automate that, that's the ideal place to start. And that's true for a few reasons. One is that the tools and the models are good at doing that, and you'll instantly get results, and it'll be something that you kind of develop an understanding for how this works. The second one is that it is a great way for you to learn about how these tools and how these models work and where their limits are. The more you can kind of scope things down and try and keep them in like really small and discrete workflows, which ultimately can be chained together to run longer processes, the better. So I would say that start looking at things like if you are typing a lot of messages or you're drafting a lot of emails, make sure that you're doing it with one of these AI assistants at your side. At the beginning, it might slow you down a little bit, but over time, it will absolutely make you a whole lot faster. And you just want to go through the process of doing work with an assistant at your side, because they can help and speed up almost anything. So just get into the habit of using them for that. Invoices, quotes, proposals, like I demoed there, that's a proposal or anything like that. There's huge opportunity to cut down on the amount of time that you're doing that. So if there's anything that you're doing that's text heavy and repetitive at all, think about what that process looks like. Think about the way that you approach it manually. So like I said, for me, it's a case of what does this company do? What are the 2 to 3 use cases that are relevant? What does a realistic timeline look like? What does realistic costing look like? That's the stuff that I would be thinking about for myself and trying to figure out. And ultimately, that's what I'm now giving to the model, telling it, these are the questions I need to answer. This is the way that I naturally think about it. Please will you now go and do that whenever I ask you to do it. Meeting notes, like I said, they're so rich in context and information that you really want to be capturing those to start, and then giving those to an AI assistant and asking it to look at where I was speaking well, look at where I could have sold better, look at the action items that I have, figure out what follow-ups I need to do and start to do them. So meeting those really good point. If you are handling things like social media for your company, or whether that's blog posts, whether that's LinkedIn posts, whether that's anything else, these tools are really good at producing that kind of content. Again, you want to be taking it and really tailoring it so that it kind of fits your language and fits your brand. But you can get to a point where you are able to produce a whole lot of content and a whole lot of stuff very quickly. And I know for a fact that you can do that in a way that feels authentic and feels like it's on brand for you. And that can be exceptionally powerful for a marketing, from a marketing perspective. Customer FAQ automation, again, very much depends on your business, but like most businesses, there are a lot of repetitive questions. These tools are great at doing this quickly, doing it accurately. It's now at a point where, depending on what your customer support looks like, I would say that 70 to 80 to 90% of it can be automated. And that obviously just allows you to, one, offer better customer support and do it in a cheaper and kind of more sustainable way. Perfect. Great. So like I mentioned earlier, you want to be using a paid account from a data privacy and protection perspective. If you're on the free version, you are automatically giving the model providers, so OpenAI or Anthropic or Google, the permission to use your data to train new models. Personally, that doesn't bug me. I don't have an issue with it, but I know that a lot of people do. And there's certain pieces of information which you don't want being fed into these models. You can entirely avoid that by having a paid account and choosing not to use your data to train new models. So it's helpful to be aware of that up at the top. In terms of data privacy, depending on your business, there might be very sensitive information and you may want to avoid giving it to these tools. I think that there is a broad, people possibly too conservative here, and too worried about what information is kind of going into these models. Be careful about it if it is really sensitive. But beyond that, I would say that the benefit of using these tools far outweighs any other concerns, particularly if it's information that isn't, exceptionally sensitive. From a data security perspective, the model providers that you're working with, whether that's Anthropic or Google or OpenAI, they are some of the biggest companies in the world. They have some of the best security in the world. If you are comfortable trusting Microsoft and SharePoint or Google and Google Drive or anything like that, I think that it's fair to think about this in the same way. So if you're putting documents into there, you can assume that you have the same level of protection and security that you would have by storing a document in SharePoint. So that's from a privacy and security perspective. Human review, like I said, these models are getting better and better, and I find that they are exceptionally accurate. And to be honest, most times better than human outputs at this point. I still don't feel comfortable allowing a tool and agents to kind of operate without my oversight. So I still review anything that they produce. I still review anything that is actually going out or is going to be customer facing, and would suggest doing the same until you're really trusted and you're really comfortable and you can be confident that what it's producing is aligned with what you want it to do. That applies to the brand tone and the consistency. Like I said, you want it to match you and to match your business personality. There is a big risk of producing stuff that feels like it is really AI generated. I don't know about you, but there's a bunch of telltale signs that I can pick up on immediately. And whether correct or not, like when I see that, I tend to discount the information and probably not even read it as deeply as I should. So I think there is still a lot of value in ensuring that this is something that you own the output, you own the signature on it, and it still sounds and feels like you. And then finally, depending on the size of your team, I would advise that you get every person a license. Again, this comes back to the free versus paid. If you have a team, I think that whether you know it or not, whether they tell you or not, many people are using these tools. And I've seen that play out across a lot of businesses, whether they're allowed to or not, they're finding ways to use them. If they aren't allowed to do it, then they're typically using personal accounts and feeding company information into their personal accounts. That's not a good place to be. It is worth getting them subscription, getting people on these tools. They're going to be far more productive because of it. And you're going to be sure that the data and the information that they're providing to the tools is safe and secure. Beyond that, I don't think that you need tons of governance. I think that you want to keep governance as lightweight as possible and give people the freedom to use these tools within constraints, but give them the freedom to play, give them the freedom to experiment, because once they get comfortable and once they get using them, it provides a huge boost to their productivity. Perfect. So here we just look at emerging trends. So I'm sure you've all heard about agents by now. I'm sure you've heard it a whole lot. I'm not sure how clear everybody is on what an agent is. I think that the nice way of thinking about it is that AI and AI tools, as you typically use them, have been more of a kind of chatbot. You go to ChatGPT or Claude, you ask a question, and it gives you an answer, right? Very research-based, very similar to the way that you might use Google. We're in the point of transition where, as opposed to just going and asking a question and getting something back, agents are now able to perform actions on your behalf. So like, what does that actually look like? Right? It's like you have an agent and you can go and you can still instruct it to do something. But typically agents are also connected to a bunch of your other tools. So if I look at my agents, and that for context, this is what my business does. We build and deploy these agents into different organizations for specific use cases. Mine is connected to my email, to my calendar, to my meeting note taker, to my CRM. It's able to write code. It's able to conduct research. It's able to do a whole lot of other things. If I go and ask it to do something, it will go and look at my meeting notes, look at my emails, look at any other relevant context, and then perform an action, whether that's drafting a proposal, whether that is adding something to my calendar, whether that's drafting an email for me. I give it one instruction, and that just kind of then takes care of the rest and has access to my tools so that it can do it effectively. That is great if I tell it, but then it also does stuff on a daily basis without me telling it. So a good example is that every morning I wake up to a message where my agent has gone and had a look at my my calendar. It's looked at who I had meetings with for the day. It's researched that person. It's looked if we've had any previous meetings, and it gives me a quick daily briefing of this is what's on your calendar. This is who you're speaking to. Here's the previous context. Right? It's really small, but those things just allow me to go into all these meetings very prepared and to be really present. This is still fairly early, to be quite honest. Like agents are, I would say over the November last year, they really became something that was reliable and it was good. And you're now starting to see them proliferate across everything. I think that you're going to see it across a lot of different tools that you use. I think that smart business operators are going to lean into this heavily. You are able to produce a lot of work and a lot of high quality work using agents. Like it gives you a ton of leverage. And if you set it up correctly, it's something that just gets better and better over time. Right? As the tools improve and as the models improve, the agent capabilities improve. And there's this magical thing where once you set up, you wake up one morning and one of the model providers has dropped a new model, and suddenly your tooling has improved by 10 or 20 or 30%. And like that's a crazy thing because you haven't done a thing, but suddenly what you're able to do and what you're able to offer to your customers is way better. So agents are coming, they're fully going to kind of change the way that we go about how we do our work, in my opinion. And yeah, I advise everybody to kind of lean in and get very comfortable with that and start looking for small ways in your business where you can experiment with it. For a South African context specifically, WhatsApp is a kind of key interface. I think that lots of businesses avoid that, but more of them are leading into it and recognizing that this is the way that we do work in SA. Lots of stuff is happening through WhatsApp, and these agents can exist in WhatsApp. So exact same for me. These agents that we build, you interact with them through WhatsApp or Slack or Telegram or whatever you choose. But I would say that over 50 to 60% of my work currently is happening through WhatsApp. I send a message to my agent, it goes off and does work. And that feels a bit strange initially, but once you get comfortable with it, it's pretty incredible because it's always there and it's kind of always working on your behalf and it meets you where you are. So would keep an eye on that and kind of figure out if that's a way that you like to work and how you can do it. Emerging also small, but very important, voice. I'd say that 80% of the time I'm talking to my laptop as opposed to actually typing anything. Same on my phone. Voice is just far easier. You can work far faster. And we've gotten to a point now where the tools exist that you can just speak and it will transcribe immediately and accurately. And again, this feels small until you use it and you realize that you just 4, 5, 6 times faster as a result of it. And when you're working with AI tools, it's also far better because you tend to elaborate more and talk more and give far more context when you can just speak as opposed to type. And the models or the tools are really context hungry and they thrive on context. So the more you can dump in, the better the results. Yeah, and I guess the final 2 points there is that, yeah, the increasing integration. Like I said, these agents connect to everything, and they're getting good at doing that on their own. So you want to lean into that. It's going to allow you to move fast. It's going to give you an advantage if you do it now. That won't always be there, but it's going to become a kind of staple or a requirement in my perspective, which I believe is a poll.
Before we go on to the next poll, let's just look at the questions coming from the audience.
Yeah.
The first one is, if a company institution have a paid version, how many people can use this? Let's just do that one question at a time and you can answer.
So it's typically one license per person. So paid version would be on a per person basis. Yeah.
Thanks. And another one from Hanneli Botha is there a way to prohibit employees to use these models?
I suppose you could from like your IT side, like you could block the websites that they go to. So you could just like ban sites like ChatGPT or Claude. I would strongly advise against it. Just like would basically be like blocking the internet like a few years ago. But if you really wanted to, you could.
Right, and two questions sort of linked to each other is to do with your AI agent. The first question is, what AI tool do you use to do that? In other words, to create this AI agent. And also a question from Kevin is, how do you interface WhatsApp to this agent?
So that is the tooling that my company builds. So they're agents that we build that will live in WhatsApp or in Slack or whatever messaging tool that you use, and then connect to your email or your calendar if you want to. Like, you can connect to any tool as you choose. It doesn't have to. And then directly with that agent, you can essentially build these capabilities into it. So it's like I send my agent a voice note and say, every day at 8 a.m., please will you go and check my calendar, check my meetings, and give me a daily briefing. It will then figure out how to do it. And at 8 a.m. every day, I get a message. So yeah, that's what we're building. We do sell that through to businesses and we help them set that up. So happy to continue that conversation if anybody's interested in it.
Right, the next question is from Glenn. Does a paid subscription automatically protect the data you feed into the model? Or is this something you have to opt out from the settings?
You typically have to opt out. So you'll see a setting that says something about, it usually says something about improving Claude or improving ChatGPT. I'm actually having a look for it here if I can find it quickly. But yeah, you usually have to opt out of it. So go have a look in the settings. I can't find it straight away, but you have to toggle it off. It's probably on by default.
All right, the next one from Gabriel Low is, how much does it cost for minimum for this agent?
Assuming that you're talking about the ones that operate in WhatsApp, it depends on the use case. It depends on how many agents you have across your business. And it depends if you bring in your own kind of model or subscription. But typically you're looking at between $100 and $150 per month per agent.
Next question is, what is the cost of this agent? I think we covered it. And how can we get hold of that?
I think that my contact details will be shared after this. So happy to kind of pick that up there. If anyone's interested, you could just pop me an email and I could give you some info on what we do and how it's applicable. We currently running a handful of pilots. So if there's a good fit, then we can have a conversation around that.
There's also a question was asked earlier by a colleague of mine is, how are you using these tools for your business decision making, as question number one. And question number two is, And what kinds of new or supporting insight have you uncovered from your own data while using them?
Yeah, good questions. I think that's almost using it as a thought partner is something that's overlooked. One of the nice ways that I like to use it, and I found quite a lot of value, is to, when I am facing a decision that I need to make, ultimately go to either my agent in WhatsApp or directly to Claude, and I'll actually just send a really long voice note dumping everything that I'm thinking about. And that can often be 5, 6, 10 minutes long, and you just want to ramble and get everything
Angela,
out. And so,
they ask if they can get this form after the slide.
and get everything out, and then just ask the agent to clean up the thinking and kind of explain to you what it understands. And that will kind of just like clarify your thinking, and then consider people that you like, right? So it's like, I'll ask her to think through the perspective of, let's say, Steve Jobs or Mark Andreessen or whatever kind of the decision that I'm trying to make, like who is an expert in the space. And these models are really good at kind of assuming that persona, because there's typically a lot of context available in their knowledge of how that person thought about things or approached things. And suddenly you have this kind of board of 3, 4, 5 people where you're getting differing perspectives, and that's able to weigh in on the decision that you're making. Ultimately, it's your decision, but I find that input is really useful.
Thank you. I see Clara, a guest from outside, hand is up. Clara, can you come in?
Do you want to ask your question, Clara?
No, but I would like to know, you talked about quite a lot of things like invoices. Will you cover that as well? Where to generate invoices?
Yeah, it entirely depends on how you do it currently. So like for me personally, I just get the agent to generate a PDF with the details that I give it to generate them. If you have accounting software like Xero or Sage, there are ways that you can connect it directly, so that you could just literally send a voice note to your agent saying, please generate an invoice for X, Y, or Z, and it would do it directly in your accounting tools. Another really nice, simple, but powerful use case that I find myself using a lot is for processing receipts or invoices. So if I have a meeting in person, I'll take a picture of the receipt. The agent then goes through, reads everything that's on there. It will extract everything, write it through to a Google Sheet where I have all my expenses, store the picture in Google Drive. And then those expenses can be processed by my accountant whenever needed. The same thing with like email invoices. So twice a day, my agent runs through my email inbox, looks if there's any invoices or receipts. So things like subscriptions or any payments that have come off. It will then download that PDF, have a look at the contents, write it to the expense sheet, and store the invoice somewhere. So small workflows like that, which are simple but quite tedious to actually do yourself, these agents are really good at kind of handling that and doing it reliably.
When you say agent, do you mean it's a separate agent than using Claude?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
For these ones, yeah.
Thank you.
For the invoice generation, you could probably do it in Claude directly.
Okay, thank you.
Just to ask you, do you feel your level of AI confidence has improved? Yes or no? And then if you can just do that, and I'll move over to the next question, and then we can spend a little bit more time. We have 5 minutes for some more questions and answers. Okay, next question. What new tools or ideas will you start using in your business? Okay, right, we are coming to the final minutes. So we just want to close off at this point. Are there any, we have like 2 minutes. Are there any other questions? Last chance. You can also just put it in the chat and we can respond on the chat. Is it to go? All right. Okay, so just to end off, to say a very, very big thank you to Keegan. He has popped his details into the chat. If you want to find out more about him and the company, Veracient, and the services that they offer, please make direct contact with him. And we are very pleased that you had some really great questions to ask, and we hope that those tools and ideas that you've committed to implementing, you will adopt in your business, so that you can work, as Keegan says, faster, smarter, become more productive and competitive, so that we can see that growth in the economy and the job creation. So just last words, I guess, from Keegan, and then we can pretty much sign off.
Perfect. Thanks, Angela. I saw a couple of other questions which I'll quickly answer. Lebogang, good question about what the bottleneck is now. I would say that it's understanding of the tools. One, willingness to actually experiment with them and use them. Number two, and then finally, like data hygiene. There's, like anything previously, like, there's so much value that you get from these tools if you have clean and kind of trusted data, and you can just stick these on top. So there's a lot of foundational work that actually has to go into place to start getting the benefit out of a lot of these tools. And lots of organizations don't have that. Identifying use cases is dead simple. It's like confidence that you could walk into any business now and find 10 to 20 different use cases in the space of an hour. It's actually just being able to implement those based on the data that's available. And then is it, I don't have an answer for best stock taking and ordering of raw materials. Would need to understand the use case a bit better. Good. Thanks, Angela. Yeah, like Angela said, happy to engage by email after I have put that in the chat, and hope that you all got some value out of this. Again, just really encourage you to play with them and experiment with these tools.
Fantastic. Thanks once again, Keegan, for your time, and everybody in attendance. And we hope you at least walk away with one new insight or idea to integrate into your business. So we're then done. Thank you very much.